Just 2 days before the wedding, my fiancée, Sophia, announced she was going to a class reunion. She insisted I couldn't pick her up or drop her off. I knew, deep down, that it was because Julian, her white moonlight from their student days, was back in town. Despite the knot of unease in my gut, I clung to the 8 years we had built together, convincing myself that I could trust her. But trust shattered in the early hours of the morning. My phone buzzed with an MMS message. It was a photograph. Sophia, wrapped only in a bath towel, her eyes closed, pressed impossibly close to a man whose upper body was bare. Julian. A cold wave of fear washed over me. Was she in trouble? Was she being forced? I frantically tried contacting her closest friends, her inner circle, the ones she called her childhood confidants, hoping they could reach her, check on her safety. But my messages went unanswered, my calls swallowed by silence. Trembling, I zoomed in on the photo, searching Sophia's face for any sign of distress, of coercion. But what I saw stole my breath. Her expression wasn't one of fear. It was soft, flushed with a kind of shy delight. Her hands weren't pushing him away. They were clasped tightly around Julian's neck, pulling him closer. And her lips were pressed against the sensitive skin of his throat, right on his Adam's apple. I couldn't lie to myself anymore. There was no sign of force, no hint of a struggle. This was not a woman being held against her. Well, the truth, brutal and undeniable, settled in my chest, heavy and suffocating. My throat constricted, air seizing in my lungs. Julian. He was the ghost that had haunted our relationship, the idealized figure from Sophia's youth. They had never been officially a couple, just a long, drawn-out, will they, won't they, filled with unspoken longing and hushed whispers among their classmates. Yet, she had held on to him, keeping his photos, cherishing the memory of a connection that predated me. I had asked her, years ago, to throw away the pictures, the tangible reminders of a past I couldn't touch. She'd laughed it off, calling me petty, unreasonable. We're just classmates, she'd said, her voice dismissive. Don't be ridiculous. I had swallowed my hurt, telling myself it meant nothing, that a few old photos couldn't threaten the reality of our life together. Now, the photo on my screen ripped away that last shred of self-deception. There were no more excuses to make for her. The electronic wedding invitations, already created and finalized on the planning app, mocked me with their perfect design. My thumb hovered over the screen for a moment. Then, with a sudden, sharp finality, I pressed permanently delete. Then, I composed a message to Sophia. My hands were shaking, but my resolve was firm. Wedding canceled. I wish you happiness. Hours seemed to pass. The silence from her was deafening. Finally, my phone chimed. A message from Sophia. What are you doing now? Stop being so dramatic and unreasonable all the time. If you push me too far, I won't marry you. I mean it. A bitter, hollow laugh escaped me. Even now, confronted with undeniable evidence, she was threatening me, twisting the situation to blame. Me for being unreasonable, for causing a scene. 8 years. 8 years of my life, my devotion, reduced to a punchline in a cruel joke. The sheer ugliness of it settled deep within me. Disgust. Pure, unadulterated disgust. There was no going back. I deleted her contact, blocked her number on every platform. The physical invitations, the carefully chosen wedding favors piled on the table. I swept them all into a garbage bag and dumped it in the bin. I couldn't comprehend it. If she still loved Julian, if she held him in such high regard, why had she agreed to marry me in the first place? Why deliver this devastating blow just days before our wedding? I replayed the last 8 years in my mind, searching for moments of deep connection, of reciprocal love. I found none that mirrored the intensity captured in that single photograph. She had never embraced me with such apparent abandon, such tender intimacy. Sophia was beautiful, undeniably, but her beauty was often overshadowed by a hard, imperious streak. Her family was one of the wealthiest in the city, earning her the unofficial title of Crown Princess within their social circle. Her decision to marry someone of average means like me, rather than pursuing a strategic alliance, had raised eyebrows, prompting whispers of how I must have manipulated her into saying yes. Even her closest friends had warned me. It's a blessing you got her. I remember one friend telling me, half jokingly, half seriously, you must have built good karma for centuries. Go home and check if smoke is rising from your ancestors' graves. I had foolishly interpreted their words as advice to cherish and care for Sophia, not to betray her trust. Now, The meaning was chillingly clear. Both Sophia and her friends had viewed our relationship, my devotion, as a favor bestowed upon me, a generous gift from the crown princess to a commoner. I had loved Sophia fiercely, blindingly. For her, I had set aside my own ambitions, my chosen career path, opting instead for roles that allowed me to be constantly available, to manage our home, her daily life, creating a haven for her away from the pressures of her family business. I wanted her to see our home, the space I built around her, as a sanctuary, a place where she could simply be, leaving the demands of her professional life at the door. But I discovered she valued freedom above all else, a freedom that extended even to her emotional attachments. I didn't regret the effort, the sacrifices. My only condition had been her heart, her complete and unwavering love. I told myself that if she ever wavered, if she ever betrayed that trust, even once caught, I would walk away instantly, no hesitation. That was why the group message canceling the wedding had been so swift, so final. Messages flooded my phone almost immediately, shocked questions, concerned friends, confused relatives. But Sophia's profile remained silent, motionless amidst the digital storm. I could picture it all too vividly. Her, naked with Julian, celebrating their reunion, utterly oblivious to the chaos she had unleashed, to the life she had destroyed. I spent a long time just sitting, the silence of my apartment amplifying the emptiness inside. Then, slowly, I began to gather my things. This apartment, where I had moved in with Sophia only 2 months ago, finally sealing our commitment after years of her reluctance to cohabit. I had bought it years ago, a place of my own, a fallback plan perhaps, though I'd never consciously admitted it. I hadn't lived here for years. Arriving at my own apartment, the air was stale, carrying the faint scent of disuse. I called a cleaning service, needing to make it habitable again. As the cleaner finished and was about to leave, a furious pounding erupted at the door, rattling the frame. "Daniel, get out here. Are you trying to threaten me?" I recognized the voice instantly. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. She had spent the night with another man, yet she was here, on my doorstep, demanding an explanation from me. I opened the door just before the cleaner could leave. Sophia stood there, her face contorted with rage. The moment the door swung open, her furious eyes fixed on me. She didn't hesitate, launching into a tirade. "Is this how you get my attention? You think you can just cancel the wedding whenever you feel like it?" she shrieked, her voice rising. "What is it you want? I'm incredibly busy right now. Can you stop being so pathetic and annoying?" The cleaner, a middle-aged woman, was frozen in the doorway, her eyes wide with shock at the scene unfolding before her. I stepped aside, gesturing for her to leave. Sophia, enraged by my silent dismissal, lashed out, kicking the bag of trash I'd left by the door, scattering its contents across the hallway floor. The cleaner flinched, her hand shaking slightly. I waved her away, telling her to go, and turned back to Sophia. She was beautiful, yes, but looking at her now, the familiar surge of affection, the dizzying flutter in my chest, was gone, replaced by a cool detachment, even a flicker of revulsion. She stood, framed in the doorway, one hand bracing against the doorframe, her voice dripping with accusation. "Explain yourself. What is this? Running away like this? You think this little act will work?" Her tone was imperious, self-important, utterly devoid of respect for me, for our relationship. A wave of confusion washed over me. Was this the woman I had loved for so long? The one I had placed on a pedestal? This arrogant, entitled stranger? "What is there to explain, Sophia?" I asked, my voice flat. "You know what you did with Julian last night. Do I really need to spell it out?" Her face, which had been flushed with anger, drained of color, then flushed again. Her brows furrowed, her eyes blazing. "You're angry, because of that?" she demanded, disbelief lacing her tone. "And, because of that, you broadcast to everyone that the wedding's off." She scoffed. "Don't be so petty, Daniel. I can forgive you for this tantrum. Just tell everyone it was a joke, that you were being silly." Forgive me? She had spent the night, or part of it, with Julian, and she was offering me forgiveness? Even now, with the evidence undeniable, she saw no fault in herself, only in my reaction. She was blaming me, condescendingly offering her pardon. But I was beyond anger, beyond hurt. I was simply empty. The love I'd held for her for 8 years had been utterly depleted. "No, thank you," I said, stepping back. "There's no need. You should tell everyone you're marrying Julian instead. It makes more sense." I moved to close the door, but she shoved her way inside, stumbling slightly as I instinctively recoiled. I frowned, taking another step back, wanting no physical contact with her. She seized the opportunity, lunging forward and wrapping her arms around my waist, pressing her face against my chest. The unfamiliar scent of men's cologne hit me, sharp and nauseating. I felt a wave of revulsion, recoiling violently, pushing her away. "Get out," I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. Sophia stared at me, her mouth agape, stunned by my reaction, by the stark command. "Daniel," she gasped, "do you know what you're saying?" For years, I had been the gentle, patient one, always soothing, always placating. It was the first time I had ever spoken to her like that. Her eyes flashed with anger, but her lower lip trembled, her hands clinging to my shirt, trying to pull me back. I gently but firmly detached myself. "Sophia, canceling the wedding was a decision I made after careful consideration," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I'm not changing my mind. Unless you'd prefer everyone see the photos of you and Julian in your intimate moment?" Her face went deathly pale. Her hands reached out again, trembling, trying to grab my clothes. "Daniel, you must be misunderstanding things," she pleaded, her voice low and desperate. "I didn't do anything. You can't treat me like this based on gossip and assumptions." It was the first time I had ever seen Sophia humble herself, pleading with me. She had always been the crown princess, imperious and self-assured. The old me would have melted instantly, rushing to comfort her, dropping to my knees if necessary. But now, looking at her desperate face, I felt nothing but cold disdain. She still didn't seem to grasp the gravity of her actions. She was still trying to manipulate me, to twist the narrative. I took out my phone and opened the message with the photo. Her eyes widened, and she lunged, trying to snatch the phone. I easily pulled back, keeping it out of reach. "Tell me, Sophia," I said, my voice dangerously soft. "Under what circumstances would a photo like this be taken? You were clearly not being held against your will. If you've already gone this far with Julian, why are you here, bothering me? I should step aside, shouldn't I? I'm not one to stand in the way of true love. You and Julian, you belong together. Forever." Sophia bit her lip, her eyes darting away. "Julian, he's not going to live much longer," she whispered, her voice barely audible. I scoffed, a harsh, ugly sound. "What?" I challenged. "Did sleeping with you miraculously cure him?" Her eyes widened in genuine shock. "We didn't," she cried, her voice rising. "We didn't sleep together. He said he was dying, that he wanted to experience what it was like to be a couple, just once, before he went. We only hugged. It wasn't what you think. It wasn't dirty." Her illogical, desperate explanation stunned me into silence for a moment. "He's dying, so he wants to take those kinds of photos with you," I repeated slowly, incredulity dripping from my voice. "You want to keep them to remember him by after he's gone? How incredibly generous of you, Sophia." I shook my head. "You know what? Just marry him. You two seem perfect for each other. A dying man who wants to stage a romantic deathbed photo shoot, and a woman willing to go along with it. Yes, a good girl like you deserves a man like him." Sophia looked devastated, tears welling in her eyes, still blocking the doorway. "Daniel, don't say that." I was about to push her gently out of the door and close it when my phone rang. It was Mr. Meng, Sophia's father. Sophia's eyes widened in panic. "Please," she whispered, grabbing my arm again. "Don't tell him. My dad. He wouldn't understand right now." I hesitated, then tightened my lips and answered the call. Mr. Meng was a cultured, gentlemanly man, despite his immense wealth. He doted on Sophia, but he was also traditional. If he found out about the photo, about Julian, Sophia would face severe consequences. Mr. Ming invited me over for drinks, his voice kind and concerned. He subtly probed, asking if Sophia and I had hit a rough patch, promising to talk to her about her little faults, to discipline her. Hearing his warm, unsuspecting tone, it was difficult to reconcile this man with the imperious daughter he had raised. Thinking of that photo again, the urge to tell him everything right then was overwhelming. But I decided against it. It needed to be done in person, properly. He deserved to hear the truth directly. When I hung up, my voice calm, Sophia's expression immediately relaxed. "See," she said, a fragile smile appearing. "You were just trying to scare me." I didn't reply. I simply opened the door wider, gestured for her to step outside, and closed it behind her. Sophia stood there for a moment, stunned, then began fiddling with the lock, trying the code. I had changed the code the day I moved back in. It wouldn't open. I went into the bedroom to change and get ready to leave. Going to see her father required a certain formality. It would likely be the last time I saw him. Sophia, realizing she couldn't get in, started pounding on the door again. You said you were going to see my dad. Let's go together, she shouted through the door. Stop being so childish. I explained everything. Can't we just go and have a nice dinner? Ignoring her shouts, I finished getting ready, picked up my keys, and walked out of the apartment, past the closed door, and headed downstairs to my car. As I drove away, I saw Sophia's car pull out behind me, following. When I arrived at Mr. Meng's house, dinner was already laid out. On the table was squirrel-shaped mandarin fish, a dish I particularly liked. Daniel, come in, Mr. Meng said warmly, gesturing me towards the table. I just got a new bottle of good wine. Come and have a drink with me. I used to bring him a bottle every time I visited, knowing his fondness for it. Sophia walked over, reaching out to take my arm and guide me to a seat. I subtly shifted, avoiding her touch. In the past, she would put on a show of being a loving couple for her father, and because I loved her, I played along, happy to be part of her act, however hollow it felt. But I was done being her puppet, her accommodating clown. Her hand froze in midair. Her expression tightened, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face before she forced a smile and sat down beside me. Mr. Meng, still unaware of the full extent of our issues, noticed the tension. Knowing Sophia's difficult temperament, he turned to her, his expression stern. Did you upset him? He asked her directly, indicating he expected her to explain herself. Tell me what happened. I'll sort it out. Sophia pouted, shooting me a reproachful look. I'm sorry, she mumbled, her voice sullen. It's all right, I said quietly, shaking my head. She let out a breath of relief, visibly relaxing. I turned to Mr. Meng, my expression hardening. Mr. Meng, I said, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the fragile peace. Sophia and I have canceled the wedding. We're not compatible, and we've decided to go our separate ways. Sophia's wide, tear-filled eyes fixed on me, filled with astonishment. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so direct, so final, especially after her minimal apology. She hadn't believed I would hold firm, that I wouldn't instantly forgive her, as I always had. But some things in this world can't be undone, can't be swept away by a simple sorry. My love for her had been a resource, a well that had finally run dry. There was nothing left to draw from. The air in the room became thick with tension. No one spoke. Suddenly, Sophia's phone chimed. A message notification. She picked it up quickly, glanced at it, and shoved it into her coat pocket. But as she did, she must have accidentally triggered a voice message or audio snippet. Though the volume was low, in the stunned silence of the room, I heard it clearly. My dear, my head hurts a little. Where did you put the medicine? Mr. Meng's face turned instantly grim. He looked at Sophia, his eyes narrowed, demanding an explanation. Sophia's face went white. She bit her lip, her eyes wide with panic. That's not meant for me, she stammered. It's from a group chat. Hearing her flimsy excuse, Mr. Meng's expression softened slightly. He gestured towards the food. Well, let's eat, he said, trying to regain control of the situation. Try the dishes, Daniel. Sophia, make sure Daniel eats. Sophia sat down and, with a forced smile, picked up a piece of squirrel fish for me. Perched on top was a sprig of cilantro. She still didn't remember, or perhaps didn't care, that I detested cilantro. I ignored her gesture. My appetite vanished. The food felt like ash in my mouth. I reached for the wine bottle Mr. Meng offered, but as I did, my eyes caught a faint, but distinct, reddish mark just below the collar of Sophia's dress. A hickey. A mark. Left by someone else. Unmistakable. She was here, trying to maintain a facade, trying to salvage things with me, wearing the physical evidence of her night with another man. I set the wine glass down, ready to address the situation head-on, when Sophia's phone rang again. Sophia? Can I come in? I'm right outside your door. Julian's voice. Mr. Meng looked at Sophia, a question in his eyes. But Sophia, seemingly lost in the moment, her face flushing slightly, spoke quickly. Too quickly. Oh, it's just a friend who's nearby, she said, turning to her father. I'll invite him in for dinner, if that's all right. Julian walked in moments later, greeting Mr. Meng with practiced charm. He immediately sat down next to Sophia and began fussing over her, piling food onto her plate. I watched, a silent observer, the scene unfolding like a poorly written play. Sophia smiled sweetly at Julian and picked up a piece of the squirrel fish, offering it to him. Don't you love this dish? She cooed. I learned how to make it from my dad. You should try it. I could barely contain my laughter. It was Julian. The squirrel fish, my favorite, the dish I loved, that I thought she knew I loved. She had learned to make it, not for me, but for him. 8 years. 8 years we'd been together, and she'd never cooked me a single meal, not even the simplest dish. But for her precious, white moonlight, she had gone to the effort of learning his favorite from her father. Julian's eyes met mine for a brief moment, a flash of smug triumph crossing his face. Ah, that explains it, he said to Sophia, still beaming. No wonder your cooking is so good. You learned from your dad. You're amazing, Sophia. Sophia blushed prettily, playfully swatting his arm, a gesture of casual intimacy that confirmed everything. Watching them, the way they interacted, the easy physical affection, they looked like a couple utterly smitten, completely lost in each other. Mr. Ming's face was now ashen, his initial concern replaced by cold fury. His gaze flickered between Sophia and Julian, then settled on Sophia, his voice tight with disapproval. Don't just think of yourself, Sophia, he said sharply. Pay some attention to Daniel. Sophia sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes slightly before turning to me. With a dismissive gesture, she haphazardly picked up a piece of food and offered it to me. I recoiled, placing my bowl back on the table with a quiet click. I'm finished, I said, standing up. Mr. Ming, I'm not feeling very well. I won't be able to drink with you tonight. Not well, Mr. Ming asked immediately, putting down his chopsticks, his concern for my health overriding his anger towards Sophia. Is your stomach bothering you? Should Sophia take you to see a doctor? You shouldn't ignore it. How could he have known? My chronic stomach issues, often triggered by stress. The pain I had endured alone. Mr. Ming, the self-made billionaire, was sharp. He might not have seen the full picture initially, but the pieces were rapidly falling into place. My demeanor, the photo, the conversation he overheard, Julian's sudden appearance and public display of affection, the hickey on Sophia's neck. He saw it all now. I gently placed my hand on Mr. Ming's arm, reassuring him. It's nothing serious, Mr. Ming. Thank you for your concern. I paused, making sure my voice was clear, final. Mr. Ming, I repeated, meeting his eyes. The matter between Sophia and I is settled. Due to the events of last night, we have officially canceled our engagement. I managed a faint, polite smile. I wish you all the best, Mr. Ming. I hope you find a better son-in-law in the future. What? Mr. Ming gasped, his head snapping towards Sophia, who sat frozen, her face pale with horror. He started to say something, to reach for me, to implore me to stay, to reconsider. But I shook my head, cutting him off. My farewell was polite, firm, irrevocable. I turned and walked out of the dining room, out of the house. As I exited the front door, I could hear Mr. Ming's furious voice rising behind me, demanding to know exactly what had happened the previous night. Then, Sophia's voice, defensive, defiant. How is this my fault? I heard her shout. Am I your daughter? Or is he your son? He's the one who didn't trust me, who doubted me and Julian. We were just having dinner as friends, and he turned it into this huge drama. Even with all the evidence, even when confronted directly, she refused to see her own culpability. It was always my fault, my overreaction, my unreasonableness. What was there left to hold on to? 8 years of my life, reduced to this pathetic, ugly scene. 8 years of devotion, ending with a polite goodbye and the sound of her accusations. I could walk away with dignity, but forgiveness? That was a step too far. What she had done, how she had treated me, I couldn't forgive. My cousin, Daniel, called, suggesting we get drinks. I drove straight there. I rarely went out drinking. Sophia didn't like it when I socialized. Without her, the only time I did was usually at home, or sometimes with Mr. Ming. Ironically, she had reconnected with Julian at a social gathering, a party I hadn't attended because she didn't want me there. Looking back over the years, it had always been me compromising me, bending, me giving way. I had allowed myself to believe there was a place for me in her heart, however small. Now I knew there never had been. Daniel looked at me with concern, a hint of pity in his eyes. So, he said, pouring me a drink. Julian comes back, and suddenly you're canceling the wedding? Did you do it, or did Sophia? I did, I replied, downing the drink in one gulp. My voice was rough. Why? Daniel pressed. What happened? Was it her? Was it Julian? I gave a bitter laugh. I didn't need to explain anything. He understood. Did he know you were about to get married? Daniel demanded, his voice rising. in indignation. And he just shows up and tries to wreck everything? He shook his head. Maybe it's for the best, Daniel. Sophia letting him do that. She's not right for you anyway. And you put up with it for 8 years. You were practically a doormat. He used a crude term, a local slang implying someone pathetically eager to please, a licked dog, but in a much more negative, insulting way directed at me for being so compliant. I just looked at my drink. I was blind, I admitted softly. But now I'm cutting my losses. Daniel raised his glass. You're lucky, man, he said, clinking his glass against mine. Better to find out about these cheating scumbags before you tied the knot. He paused, then changed the subject. Hey, did you think any more about that offer from Professor Miller? To join his lab? Now that things are like this, you don't have anything holding you back, right? Go back to what you love. Professor Miller was a brilliant man, a mentor to both Daniel and me in university. He had invited me to join his prestigious research lab years ago. I had declined. At the time, my relationship with Sophia was intense, and she'd made it clear that being tied up in a lab for 10 or 15 days at a time, sometimes a month, without coming home, was unacceptable. What good is a boyfriend who's never around? She'd said dismissively. Now, I saw the bitter irony. She was constantly traveling for her business, sometimes gone for weeks. She hadn't cared about my career, my passion. She just didn't want me inconveniently out of reach when it suited her. She hadn't thought of me at all. I'll contact the professor, I said, looking at Daniel, a new resolve hardening in my eyes. Seriously? Daniel beamed. That's great, Daniel. That's your dream, your future. Don't mess it up this time. Once you're in that lab, you'll be isolated for a while, you know? I nodded calmly. I know. And don't worry. I won't turn back for her. Not this time. Joining Professor Miller's lab, dedicating myself to research, it was my true passion, my ambition. I wouldn't abandon it for anyone ever again. I contacted Professor Miller the next day. We spoke for a long time about potential breakthroughs, research directions. He was excited, saying my ideas were as sharp as ever, that my participation would significantly accelerate their progress. I accepted his offer. I packed my bags, moved into the Spartan dorms near the lab, and immersed myself completely in my work. Months blurred into a focused continuum of experiments, data analysis, and scientific inquiry. The outside world faded away. I deliberately cut off contact, needing to rebuild myself, to find my center again. Until the project was complete. At the press conference announcing our breakthrough, I saw her. Sophia. She was there, in the audience, a striking figure in a tailored suit, holding a stack of documents. The suit, it was the one I had bought her for the day she officially joined her family's board of directors. She had discarded it that same day, saying she didn't like it. Seeing her wear it now, here, felt like another calculated move, another performance. She seemed to be looking around, perhaps searching for someone. When her eyes flickered in my direction, I quickly averted my gaze, focusing on the stage, preparing to present our findings. Sophia watched me intensely throughout my presentation. As soon as I finished and stepped down, she moved forward, trying to approach me. Daniel, she said, her voice soft. It's been a long time. Do I look good in this suit? But I was surrounded. Colleagues, potential collaborators, members of the press descended upon me, eager to discuss the research, the implications. Sophia was pushed aside, forced to wait on the fringes. She lingered for a long time, patiently, until the crowd around me finally thinned. She approached again, her hand outstretched. I noticed a bracelet on her wrist, the delicate silver chain I'd bought her with my very first significant paycheck, a gift she had also seemed indifferent to at the time. I really know I was wrong, Daniel, she said, her voice low and earnest. Can we go back? Can we get married again? We can plan a new wedding, right away. A few people nearby, alerted by her emotional tone and my formal refusal to engage, paused, their eyes darting between us, sensing the drama. I could almost hear the headlines forming in the minds of the journalists present. Professor Miller had pushed me to be the main speaker, encouraging me to step into the public eye, to gain recognition for my work. But this wasn't the kind of recognition he had intended. This would be fodder for the gossip columns, a messy relationship drama involving a rising scientist. Sophia's gaze was intense, determined. The same look she wore when she was negotiating a deal, certain she would get her way. She still thought I was the same man, the same devoted Daniel who would never refuse her anything. But her actions, bringing this personal mess to my professional triumph, only made me feel exposed, embarrassed, and deeply resentful. It was always like this. She created the mess, and I was left to deal with the fallout, to clean up the wreckage. I smiled, a cold, polite smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I'm sorry, Ms. Meng," I said formally. "If you're here for potential collaboration, please speak to my colleague, Emily." I gestured vaguely towards where Emily was gathering documents. "For anything else, I'm afraid I can't help you." Sophia's hand tightened on the documents she held. "I'm speaking to you in such a humble way," she insisted, her voice rising, frustration creeping in. "What else do you want from me? Julian and I. Nothing happened. Why are you so stubborn? So unwilling to listen to my explanation?" She had never once apologized for anything before. She always twisted things, claiming she was partly right, finding fault with others, and I was always the one who ended up placating her. My voice remained calm, steady. "Being humble now doesn't automatically earn you forgiveness," I said, the truth hanging heavy in the air. "You still don't see what you did wrong, do you? You just don't want to lose the licked dog who always came running back." She stood there, looking vulnerable, beautiful in her distress. But my protective instinct, the one that had always leaped to her defense, remained dormant. All I wanted was to sever every last tie with her. She was a poison. To stay connected would mean my destruction. To cut her out meant rebirth. Sophia bit her lip. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice pleading. "Please, listen to me." She reached for me again, trying to pull me closer. I took a step back, avoiding her touch. "Don't touch me," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. I didn't look at her expression, simply turned and walked away, looking for Professor Miller. Later that night, after the press conference and reception, I didn't see Sophia again. As I was leaving the venue, the event manager approached me, holding a stack of papers. "Mr. Thompson," he said, "the lady you were speaking with earlier, Ms. Meng, she left this file. Collaboration proposal," she said. "She asked me to give it to you when she left." The file felt heavy in my hand. Yes, many companies were interested in collaborating with our lab. Sophia's family company wasn't the most prominent, but a collaboration was possible. I was about to hand the file to Emily, our project manager who handled all collaborations, but as I leafed through it, a single sheet of paper slipped out. An ultrasound report. Sophia's pregnancy report. I picked it up, my heart giving a sudden, unexpected jolt. 7 weeks pregnant. A cold, bitter laugh escaped my lips. So, she and Julian had been very productive. She was clearly living a much more fulfilling life than I had imagined. I was about to leave the file, including the report, at the front desk for her to pick up, when I saw them. Sophia and Julian, standing in the hallway just outside the event hall. Sophia was on the phone. "Dad, what more do you want me to do?" she was saying, her voice frustrated, angry. "You told me to apologize, and I did. He's still acting so arrogant, so superior. What's so great about him? If our family wasn't rich, he wouldn't have stayed with me for 8 years. He's just a licked dog, Dad. You can't actually believe in his research, can you? What kind of success could he possibly achieve? You can't make me chase him anymore." The words hit me like a physical blow. A licked dog. That's all I was to her. 8 years. All my love, my devotion, my sacrifices, reduced to a transactional arrangement based on my supposed desire for her family's wealth. And the apology, the plea for reconciliation, the offer of immediate marriage, it was all a performance, a charade to placate her father. She hadn't changed at all. She hadn't cared about my feelings, not for a second. Why had I ever believed she might? "I was so angry," she said, hanging up the phone abruptly, her eyes red-rimmed with frustration. She buried her face in Julian's chest. "I can't believe Daniel. Why is my dad so fixated on him? You know I only love you." She clung to Julian. "Our baby is almost 2 months along," she murmured, her voice softer now. "Once I'm showing more, I'll talk to my dad. He'll have to accept you then. Just wait a little longer for me." Julian wrapped his arms around her, pulling her closer. They stood there in the hallway, enacting a scene of devoted love, oblivious to the world. The pregnancy report, it was Julian's baby. The disgust churning in my stomach intensified. What was she playing at? Coming to find me? Was it just to satisfy her father? Or was she looking for a backup, someone to step in and be a father figure for Julian's child? Was I just meant to be the ultimate fool, the convenient dupe? 8 years. And all I got in return was humiliation, pain, and the revelation that she had never offered a single shred of genuine affection, and her saying I was only with her for her money. That was the deepest insult of all. She was apologizing only because her father pushed her, talking about marriage only because she needed a solution. She had never, ever considered my feelings. Why on earth would I marry a woman whose heart belonged to another man, who saw me as a means to an end, who would badmouth me to my own father? The sheer audacity, the cruelty of it spurred me into action. I walked towards them, the stack of documents still in my hand. I threw the file at Sophia's feet. Sophia gasped, startled, jumping back from Julian's embrace. She looked at me, her eyes wide with panic. How are you here? She stammered, trying to shield Julian behind her. Are you following me? I glanced between them, then back at her, my voice cold and level. This is our press conference, Ms. Meng, I said. Naturally, I would be here. You were eavesdropping then, she accused, trying to regain some control. Still trying to lie? I pulled out the ultrasound report from my pocket, holding it up. Eavesdropping, I scoffed. Do I need to? At the sight of the paper, her face drained of all color. She swayed, looking utterly pathetic, as if she might collapse. I dropped the report onto the floor in front of her. Your tactics, I said, my voice filled with contempt. As disgusting as ever. Sophia bit her lip, shocked by my bluntness, my utter lack of sympathy. If you didn't want me, you could have just said so, she whispered, her voice trembling. My feelings aren't something you can just trample on. You couldn't let go of Julian, but you couldn't let go of me either. Do you actually enjoy playing games with two men? She stepped forward, reaching for my sleeve again, desperate to explain, to salvage something. But from behind her, Julian's hand shot out, grabbing the hem of her dress. Don't say any more, he urged her quietly. Sophia hesitated. Daniel, she turned back to me, her voice urgent, pleading. Please, listen to my explanation. Looking at her, so eager to talk her way out of it, it was almost laughable. Save your explanations for Julian, I said, shaking my head. I don't need them. I added my voice. Cold, cutting. After doing something this repulsive, what explanation is left? Are you going to tell me you didn't take your clothes off yourself when you got into bed? I had heard enough. I turned to leave, but Sophia lunged, grabbing my arm fiercely. Don't say that, she cried. I pulled my arm away, breaking her grip. We are finished, Sophia, I said, my voice firm. Stop clinging to me. And you're having someone else's child now. Don't lower yourself further by doing things like this. Daniel Thompson, I haven't agreed to break up, she shrieked. We were engaged. I glanced towards Julian. His eyes met mine, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher crossing his face. Then, he suddenly clutched his head, his expression twisting in apparent pain. Sophia, he moaned weakly. My head, it hurts. Sophia, who had been focused solely on me, instantly whipped around, rushing to Julian's side, supporting his arm. Are you okay? She cried, her earlier desperation forgotten. I'll take you to the hospital right now. Try and hang on. She began leading Julian away, towards the exit, completely ignoring me standing there. As they reached the door, she seemed to remember my presence. She glanced back over her shoulder. Wait for me, she called out. I'm going to the hospital now. And then, as they walked away, Julian turned his head slightly and looked back at me. A smirk played on his lips. The sudden headache had been a performance. Another tactic. Another lie. Watching them disappear down the hallway, I took out my phone. I sent a message to Professor Miller, confirming my absolute commitment to the lab, to the research. We had so many projects underway, so much work to do. This time, it was truly over with Sophia. There was no possibility of reconciliation, no chance of turning back. My life without her, a life built solely by me, was just beginning. I threw myself into my work, joining multiple projects, eventually securing my own laboratory space. Messages of congratulations flooded my phone, celebrating my achievements, my rising status in the scientific community. The last time my phone had been this active was when I sent out the mass message canceling the wedding. Back then, my heart was broken, caught between the agony of betrayal and the foolish, lingering hope of forgiveness. Now, I was Daniel Thompson, the scientist, the one making breakthroughs. My choice had been the right one. Mr. Ming sent a congratulatory message as well. I replied simply, politely. He had been kind to me, but I needed to sever all ties, all connections, everything and everyone linked to Sophia. Yet, news of Sophia still reached me, mostly through Emily, my senior colleague. She knew a lot through her interactions with the Ming company. She told me Sophia had been determined to marry me, almost resigning from the board of directors over it. Emily looked at me, a hint of sympathy in her eyes. You're not thinking of going back, are you? I smiled and shook my head. What happened between us is long in the past, I said. It has nothing to do with me anymore. The saga between Sophia and Julian was widely discussed online, sparking rumors and speculation. There were reports of their relationship fracturing, whispers that Sophia was back on the board, suggesting her focus had shifted. Several people asked me if I was reconnecting with her. I paid it no mind. My latest research project was reaching a critical point, and another press conference was imminent. At the venue for the new press conference, the entrance was adorned with flowers. A large floral display stood prominently, bearing messages of congratulation. As a scientist, I preferred to keep a low profile. Such ostentatious displays felt out of character. Yet, here they were. I pushed aside the odd feeling and walked inside, ready to deliver my presentation. After the presentation, as I was preparing to leave, I saw her again. Sophia, standing near the entrance of the ballroom, wearing the dress she wore for our canceled engagement photos. She was smiling, watching me approach. Emily, who had hosted this event, looked bewildered. Didn't you say things were over between you two? She asked, glancing at Sophia's attire. Are you back together? I frowned slightly. No, I said firmly. Nothing like that. You should go on ahead, Emily. I'll handle this. Emily shrugged, her arms full of documents, and left. Sophia's makeup was perfect, but her eyes held a weariness that even the skilled artistry couldn't hide. I maintained a polite, professional distance, my gaze steady, devoid of warmth. Seeing my reserved posture, the smile faltered on her face, her eyes filling with tears. Daniel, she whispered, her voice trembling, taking a few steps towards me. I'm so sorry about everything. I know now that only you gave me unconditional love. She spoke, tears streaming down her face, advancing towards me. The old me would have rushed to her side, unable to bear her tears. Now her performance felt like an intrusion, a calculated disruption of my professional moment. It was irritating. I remained still, my expression impassive. Nothing happened that night. Daniel, I swear, she insisted, her voice choked with sobs. Julian just wanted a photo, a memento. I didn't know he would send it to you. She rattled off the familiar, increasingly implausible story. He said he was dying, that he had a terminal illness, and wanted to experience being in a relationship before he passed. I was just acting along with him, playing a part. You can't be angry about that, can you? I might have liked him when I was younger, but it was just a foolish infatuation. I never, ever wanted to leave you. I just wanted to be there for him, for his final journey. I raised an eyebrow. You were playing a part by being in a relationship with him? I challenged, my voice dry. And you're here, asking me to take you back? No, it wasn't a real relationship. It was just for him, to indulge a dying man. I wanted to explain, Daniel, I really did, but after you joined the lab, I couldn't even reach you. Yes, I had made myself inaccessible. Deliberately. I wouldn't let her disrupt my life again. She tried to move closer, but I stepped back, maintaining the distance. Seeing my deliberate withdrawal, her facade cracked. She bit her lip, tears flowing freely, a heartbroken wail escaping her. Nothing happened, she cried hysterically. Why won't you believe me? Why can't you forgive me? You said you loved me most. Why can't you trust me this one time? I wasn't going to listen to her dramatic monologue. I turned to walk away, heading towards the exit. Professor Miller and the team were waiting for the celebration dinner. You're angry about the pregnancy report? She shrieked after me. That wasn't mine. Julian faked it. I didn't stop. I just shook my head and kept walking towards the door. The report was fake. Julian forged it to try and make me marry him. He bribed someone at the hospital, she wailed, following me. I didn't get pregnant with his child. We were drunk, yes, but I didn't sleep with him. He lied about everything. He was playing me. I only found out later about all his lies, all his schemes. As she spoke, her voice growing more frantic, she seemed to be convincing herself. Then, her tone shifted, turning accusatory. If you had just listened to me in the first place, Daniel, I wouldn't have gotten so entangled with him. It's your fault things ended up like this. I've lowered myself. I've begged you. Surely you can take me back now. Julian's been arrested for forgery, she added, her voice dropping slightly. I'll listen to my dad now. Be good, and live a proper life with you. Just come home with me. I stopped and turned, gently but firmly pulling my arm free from her desperate grip. I looked into her eyes. They were swollen and red from crying, but beneath the hurt, There was still a stubbornness, a flicker of accusation, and yes, even a trace of the old longing, the old dependence. She still expected me to fold. I stood there, silent. She tried to move into my arms again. Please, she sobbed, reaching for me. Let's make up. We'll go home and get married right away. I pushed her shoulder back gently, refusing to let her cling to me. I ignored the flicker of hope in her eyes. Looking at her now, I felt nothing. Not anger, not love, not even pity. The emotional connection was gone. She seemed to sense my detachment. Daniel, she said, her voice suddenly urgent, frantic. We can go get our marriage certificate right now. I brought everything. The old me would have been ecstatic, would have done anything for this moment, for this official recognition. But her timing was too late. She only wanted this now, because Julian was gone, because her father pushed her, because her other options had failed. She wasn't choosing me out of love. She was choosing me out of necessity. And even if she was being honest about Julian's lies now, what about the next Julian? Or the one after that? She didn't wait for my reply, grabbing my hand, trying to pull me towards the exit. Let's go get the papers now, she insisted. Then we'll go home and tell our parents we're getting married. Slowly, deliberately, I began to peel her fingers from my hand, one by one. It doesn't matter what happened between you and Julian, Sophia, I said, my voice calm, firm. You don't need to explain it to me anymore. Sophia froze, turning back to me, her eyes wide. You know I mean what I say, I continued. We are finished. How you and Julian sort out your issues, that's between you two. Even if he did lie to you, you chose to be deceived. Our breakup was inevitable. I met her gaze directly. When I loved you, I gave you everything, without reservation. Now that we're done, I'm walking away just as completely. There's nothing you can do to win me back. I finished speaking. I didn't look at her face, didn't want to see her reaction. I turned and began walking away for the final time. And please, I added over my shoulder, my voice coolly dismissive. Don't try to contact me again. It's bothersome, really quite annoying. Sophia stood there, swaying, looking utterly shattered. Anyone watching, unaware of the history, might have thought I was the villain, the cruel one, who had crushed a vulnerable woman. I glanced back at her, a faint, almost sad smile touching my lips. Too late for regrets, Sophia, I said softly. She was the daughter of a billionaire, accustomed to getting her way. This kind of blunt, final rejection, delivered with such indifference, it would hurt her deeply, far more than any dramatic argument. It would, I hoped, ensure she would never seek me out again. I turned and walked towards the door, towards the waiting celebration dinner, towards my future. My career, my life, would only flourish from here. The story ends.